Our scripture for this evening, Leviticus chapter 19, verse 32. Again, that's Leviticus chapter 19, and verse number 32. Please allow me to share a personal experience that will help to illustrate the principle of the scripture selected for this evening. A number of years ago, my wife and I had the privilege of attending a banquet that had as a keynote speaker Mr. John H. Johnson, who was also accompanied by his wife, Miss Eunice Walker Johnson. After the banquet was over with, everyone was free to either leave or hang around and socialize with one another. There was a tall man with a big smile who happened to be present at that banquet. He was not nationally known then. He was then known as Senator Barack Obama. What we noticed when the banquet was over was that there was a long line of people who wanted to speak to and take a picture with the then Senator Obama. And my wife and I happened to notice that Mr. John H. Johnson and Mrs. Eunice Walker Johnson were sitting at a table and no one was coming by to speak to them or give them any sense of acknowledgement other than perhaps a quick hello in passing as they went to see Senator Barack Obama. I want to be very clear that I respect and honor President Barack Obama as well as then Senator Barack Obama. But admittedly, it bothered me that so much attention was given to this young man and no attention was seemingly given to this man who had blazed trails and paved the way for people like a Senator Obama. John H. Johnson, as you know, started the Negro Digest. He created Ebony Magazine, Jet Magazine, Fashion Fair Cosmetics. He was the first African American to be on the Forbes 400 list. He was once Black Enterprise's Entrepreneur of the Year. And again, I want to be clear in stating no disrespect to Barack Obama. I am, however, concerned that that experience symbolizes so much of what we see happening in our society today. And that is, we have turned our attention from our seniors and given so much of our attention to young people. We wonder why young people think it is their world, but they have been cultivated to think as such by the amount of attention shown them. For this reason, we call your attention to Leviticus chapter 19 and verse number 32. In the King James, it reads, "Thou shalt rise up before the hoary head, and honor the face of the old man, and fear thy God. I am the Lord." In the New Living Translation, that verse reads, "Stand up in the presence of the elderly, and show respect for the aged. Fear your God. I am the Lord." Some may take issue with this being a principle from an Old Testament book, in particular, the book of Leviticus. What we have to understand is why this principle is relevant even today. by helping us to understand what the book of Leviticus is about. If you had to just pick one word to explain the theme of the book of Leviticus, it's the word holy. It is in this book that God is trying to illustrate his holiness, as well as appealing to his people to pattern themselves after his holiness. What we must recognize in him talking to Israel through the pen of Moses, who wrote this book, that Israel had been in Egyptian bondage for 400 years. They were subjected to polytheistic religion, meaning many gods or many religions. And then they were also subject to paganism. And so in order to get out of them all of this spiritual gunk, as you might call it, the book of Leviticus is a book written to address holiness so that they could understand who God is and also understand who God had called them to be. One of the things that he wanted them to recognize in this concept of holiness is that he was not only present and powerful in the tabernacle, which was their place of worship, but he was present and powerful even in their lives. That his holiness was not to be a tabernacle experience, but was to be a way of life. He teaches them three themes of respect in the book of Leviticus. Number one, and most important, is to honor God. Number two, honor others. And number three, honor yourself. It is hard to honor one and at the same time disrespect the others. So when we see this emphasis in Leviticus 19 and verse 32 about honoring older people, God is in essence saying, how can you honor God when you don't honor those among you? How can you honor yourself if you disrespect others? So a part of honoring God is learning to honor others and also learning to honor one's self. I recognize that this is Black History Month. I'm always inclined to encourage our families to teach our children Black history. They need to have a sense of themselves beyond what they see on television, and they need to know that they come from something other than simply what is seen in our penal system and what is seen even in entertainment and sports. Not that there's anything wrong with the latter two, but our young children need to know that they are more than just athletic. They are more than just entertainers, that within our history are scientists and people who have made tremendous breakthroughs in medicine, historical breakthroughs in so many avenues and areas of life, so they have a more well-rounded view of their people. But I'd like to encourage you to focus on living history, in that we have amongst us in our own families seniors who should be honored, who have so much to share, so much perspectives and given context to life, that we may miss a wealth of wisdom and knowledge by not honoring our old people. Let me encourage you to listen to an older person. They have stories and insights that can help you to be a better person. Love an older person. How often do they feel alienated by others? They seem to only be treated as important by some when they think there's something they can get from them. Let them have a place of honor at family functions. I am baffled by the idea that when I was growing up, children were to be seen and not heard. When I was growing up, children were not even allowed in the same room with adults as they were talking. But now, and this is what's baffling, is that children seem to be the center of entertainment at the expense of Big Mama or Papa sitting in the corner who are ignored, and yet they are walking treasure troves of wisdom. Let's give our seniors a place of honor. Let's also hold their hands with technology. As we sing from this epidemic, so much is going on around us. Things happen suddenly, and changes have been brought about that demand a quick integration of technology and a response to an ever-changing and fast-growing world. I know that it can be challenging sometimes to stand in the grocery store line and an older person who still writes checks, and they wait till they get the total and then they start writing the check. I know it can be frustrating sometimes trying to teach them how to use envelopes that are self-adhesive, or trying to help them in church to open disposable communion trays as their shaking hands struggle to open the plastic to remove the cracker and then the second layer of plastic to get to the juice. But what does it hurt us to be patient with those who have come before us? In a post-COVID world, we need to spend time visiting our older people, especially those who are in nursing homes or senior buildings. While we're in COVID, let's pick up the phone and check on them just to see how they're doing. Lastly, without sounding like I'm rebuking our older people, I want to say to them, do not take offense at terminology like old or senior or elderly. Be an example, and do not say things like, don't call me Mr. or Miss, that makes me feel old. You are old, but that's the blessing. Don't try to dress and act in ways that are beneath the dignity of your age, wearing outfits and things that are not consistent with your age bracket. Be the old person, the elderly person who grows old with grace and elegance. Being old is a blessing because the alternative is to die young. This has been another installment of A Few Minutes with the Minister. Let's love our seniors.